So again, I set out to further explore my beliefs and understandings on where God is, who God is, what God is. But today's video has then ended up in my exploration as being more about dimensions, both within physics and within the frameworks of spirituality and metaphysics. Hi, Reverend Grace here. Welcome. And again, I sat down today because you'll notice over time, or if you look back over my other videos, you'll notice that, I start a thought and then maybe don't quite fully form it or fully explain it, but my videos are very much like you following my sort of process of thought of working it all out. It's all over the place. So there are some things that it's all like a percolation over time. I'm sure it's the same for all of you. It's no different for me. And if in my process of waffling on and pouring out my thoughts and my understandings, if that can bring you any sort of golden nugget on your path of learning, then fantastic. I'm not setting myself ever out to be a teacher here. This is, if you're watching my videos, this is you and me in some of my videos anyway. Some are about pilgrimages and things that I do, but some of these videos, it's just me sort of having what do they call it, like a brain fart. You're just pouring it all out. And maybe that's not what a brain fart is. I think I'm having a brain fart. Right, what am I talking about? So, I did a video a while ago. There was a few of them actually. And it's been on this sort of train of thought of who, what, where, is God. And it's still obviously something, because it's such an unknown, obviously, but there's lots of minds on this. So and I do question whether it's ever to actually be worked out. I think maybe this is the process of being. This is being human, living a life, that it's a constant thing, not for all of us, because theory number one that I started off with today, there is no God. Like, we're just born and we live a life, and that would suggest that, we're living a life without purpose. I don't think the people that believe that, I think the things that they do, like being within a family group, being a mother, a good father, or this or that, sometimes it's charitable work, sometimes it's inventing and creating. I think they see those as their purpose. That seems a very material world purpose. I suppose that's the whole point, because this belief is very much about the material world, that you're just born. You're not thinking you're living without purpose. You're living material purpose, material world purpose. And I suppose if you just believe in this, you're not maybe somebody that's going to explore anything outside of that, because that is what it is to you, because then you just die. And when you just die, there is no more. So there's no more as in, obviously, heaven. There's no more as in any afterlife. There's no more as in there's no spirit. You did not have a soul, because there's none of this. So there's no need for a soul. You're not going on anywhere. There's nothing to go on anywhere, and that's the end of that. I have issues with this theory, because when I did GCSE sociology, we had a brilliant teacher. I can't remember. I'm sure she was called Jo, but I think I'm confusing her with another brilliant Jo tutor I had at college. But that's by the by. She showed us a video from the BBC. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, and it followed this girl who was a girl living in India. I would imagine, if I'm still alive, that girl's still going to be alive, because she was a bit younger than me when that was filmed, when I was watching it as a GCSE student, like 14, 15 years old. And so basically this young girl, she kept saying, in the end, she got to whatever age where she could speak, and she was really conscious in this world, as in realising, you know, she was this little girl called Sangeeta or whatever her name was, and she said something like, can I go back home now, or when am I going to see my mum or dad, or something like that. Anyway, then it started this thing where she was really saying about where she lived and where she came from and all the rest of it. And so she was then going on and speaking about where she came from. She was naming people, she was describing a village, blah, blah. Anyway, either because of this BBC series, or this BBC had found out, I suppose, yeah, the BBC had found out about this girl and they decided to do this programme. So they paid for her, they took her to across India to the place where she came from. And it was exactly as she described it. And the film, I mean, it was BBC back in the day when BBC actually, well, yeah, it's turned out there's lots of scandalous behaviour from back in the day. But in their output, in actually what they put out on the telly, it was, and the news and the world news, like on the radio, it was really considered to be like high-end media. It was, you know, BBC was seen as reliable. They gave, you know, really broad viewpoints on things. I mean, yeah, they did Progress, the Horizon series, and then they had Hamish Miller doing Earth Energies. I mean, they used to do all sorts of stuff that I don't think they'd really touch with a barge pole now. It's all gone a bit downhill. Anyway, there's that girl with that reincarnation story. There's also that young lad in America who, from like, I don't know, 2-3 years old, he wanted to play with planes and boats, and then as he could speak, and he started having, I think they thought it was night terrors, but he was having nightmares about being burnt, and he was in a boat, or he's in a plane, or anyway, it got to the point where the years in, where the mum and dad were like, this boy is really, because again, he started giving details, names, ship names, aircraft carriers, dates, times, all sorts. And so the dad was like, wow, he really is obsessed with this. He's really going on about this a lot. And so he knew that like the military would have really good records. And so he went and asked about the records. And not only that, but he actually found that they were able to trace the name of the guy, and then they traced one of his colleagues, and they met the parents, and I don't know if they took the boy, but they met the guy's colleagues, and the guy had a photo of the dead guy that's actually now this young lad, and himself and his the rest of the crew, a photograph of them on this aircraft carrier. I mean, I'm gonna have to get some spray. Oh no, I just need to rub harder. We could be here for some time. And that's why I question that theory. Kids don't lie. So, dimensions. So, obviously there are in physics, and then there's the spirituality, the spiritual path, or traditions rather, and metaphysics. So in physics, quantum mechanics and relativity. So my first path of study was looking at in the spiritual things, because there we have 12 dimensions. And I'm thinking, well, 12, you know, there's lots of things in 12 strands of DNA, 12 archetypes, 12 months of the year, 12 apostles, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 tribes of Judah. So obviously 12, and I mean, there's lots of other places 12 crops up, but you know, that's a basic rundown of 12. And then, and I haven't, crikey, this led on to looking into so much, but there's basically, there could be 7, there could be 9, there could be 12, and then 27 comes up. So this is in my line of inquiry, looking into these things, and I'm like, 27 makes 9, 2 and 7, and 9 is a really key, significant number. But 27 is quite a leap from 7, 9 and 12. Also 13 comes in for some here. So I looked up 27, and this is from bosonic string theory. So this was like really early string theory study when they started coming up with this kind of a theory. And let me look at my notes. What did I put here? Bosonic string theory. So the universe is not made up of particles, their theory says, but of tiny vibrating strings. For the math to be internally consistent, the theory requires 26 dimensions of space plus 1 dimension of time, 27. The equations demand it to be so. Everyday life is 3-dimensional, so obviously up, down, left, right, forward, backwards, plus 1 dimension of time. String theory says that there has to be extra dimensions to allow these strings to vibrate, to produce different particles and forces. If there were fewer dimensions, the math breaks down because you get inconsistencies like negative probabilities and instabilities. The problem with the theory is it predicts particles called tachyons, is it tachyons, which either don't exist or they haven't found them yet. So, you know, didn't say that, but that is the 50-50 obviously, which imply instability. Also, it doesn't include fermions, matters of particles like electrons, which of course electrons we do know exist. We found electrons. This is why physicists moved to superstring theory. This is turning into like a Big Bang episode. What's the other one? Oh, and the M theory. So superstring theory only works properly if there's 10 dimensions. So this is 9 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. So M theory is basically the most modern one. And it has come, obviously, this is a line of exploration and experimenting and a lot of math, obviously. And M theory is a framework that combines different string theories. And naturally, it says, naturally, it comes up with 11 dimensions. So I'm guessing that this is 10 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. So this comes from symmetrical requirements, quantum consistency, and sorting out anomalies in the math. That I guess there were anomalies in superstring theory, and there were definitely anomalies in the math of bosonic string theory. Yeah, we end up with 11 here. Okay. So we're all in a very similar field. 27's right out there, but they've brought this down to 11. I mean, and it's interesting because 11 is actually a master number. 10 is a significant number. 10 takes it back to 1, which takes it back to source. But yeah, 11 stands on its own foundation of being a master number. But here in the spiritual thing, we have 12. Then I started looking at, oh, okay, so this is the physics way, but what is metaphysics, and how is that coming in? And I think we're going to have to just turn the board over to have a bit more space. So metaphysics, this came from the work of Aristotle. And he basically asked the most fundamental philosophical, I guess, questions about reality itself. What exists? What is it made of? What is it to be, to actually exist? And all his work has been later don't know when later, but anyway, later, it was grouped into, oh, am I spelling this? Metaphysical. So you can clearly see where you're getting metaphysics from metaphysica. I quite like the sound of physica. Oh, and metaphysica means, it literally translates as after. What does it translate? It literally translates as after the physics, which is interesting. After the physics. So it's almost like you've done the physics first, and this has come out of it, but that can't be right because they were kind of doing them studies all at the same time, even back then in ancient times. Going to have to clean this whiteboard, and I'm going to have to get the spray out. Talk amongst yourselves for a while. Okay, so the difference between... Oh, that's worked out quite a sweat, just cleaning this board. So the difference is basically physics asks, how does the universe work? Well, if physics is asking how does the universe work, metaphysics is asking what is the universe at its most basic level. So it's interesting because both of them, well, I don't know, they're both trying to get to the same point, really, aren't they, I think? Because surely or maybe this is where, they either need to combine or work together. Do you need to know where it's come from, what it's all about, to know how it works? This seems to be not bothered about how it works, but more like, where's it come from? What's the base level? So physics uses math and experiments, whereas metaphysics uses logic and reasoning and conceptual analysis. So this is not experimental heavy and also not proof heavy. This is constantly trying to find proof. This seems to be more, if it's the right word, trying to find explanation, maybe understanding. They're both trying to get to the root of something, but it strikes me this is trying to really get to a root. This is trying to get to a cause, or, yeah. That's what's coming to me anyway. So physics, they're trying to prove stuff to tell us how things behave. Whereas metaphysics is still asking the questions. And it certainly asks the questions that physics can't prove with experiments. So I guess that's why this ends up more on the spiritual side of things, obviously, whereas this, physics, physical, material, this is material world. Of course, it's interesting actually that there's a lot of physicists, especially now, seems to be, it's more if you've got some sort of what would be considered a metaphysical spiritual belief as a physicist, you'll find people in your circles that you can more broadly be public about that. When the very first scientists were doing science, creating science, what I mean is in the Enlightenment time, is they were people of God, they were men of God. They had a belief in God. They were trying to explore and understand God's work. They weren't just trying to do what science is now, which is very material, physical. That's how it's progressed. God's been shoved out. Science is the way, which is why we end up with theory number one, with the number of people now, obviously. I'm teaching to suck eggs here when I'm not even trying to teach. Anyway, the saying. You see what I'm saying? So I've written here, note here, physics describes the structure of reality. Spiritual frameworks describe the experience of reality. Bottom line is there's no confirmed connections between physics dimensions and spiritual dimensions. Only shared language and common intuition that reality is deeper than it appears. Yes, it is. And so we get into the spiritual side of things now. Man, this could be a new kind of exercise class for arm work. This would be your arm day at the gym. Trying to get your white volcano. I mean, crikey, they've got pinging off elastic bands for your legs. Modern day arm workout. Oh, so 12. I'm not going to go into 7. Let's stick with 12. 12 is like a well-known thing of how many dimensions there are. So I was starting to think about, my train of thought came from a Gaia program I watched years ago by Stefano de Matthias. And he, I don't know if I ever, well, yeah. So I can't quite remember what he said in the program, but obviously I'm stuck in my head with the thing of 12 dimensions for some reason. But my train of thought started as remembering that he talked about basically consciousness, which can be called source, I guess. Source consciousness, and now it has a lot of different names, everything from the divine to Big Bang Theory. I think I correlate that to Big Bang Theory, but basically consciousness, so it was this entity, energy, form, whatever, and it split itself into 2, and then that went into 3, and it split out into being 4. Let's do it now in its things. And then that went to 5. And it went up to 6. And so on. So it's coming from 1 to 12. Yeah. And we're understanding that the difference is that the things of dimension in physics are this sort of, whether you can see it or not, it's the explained reality of our dimensions. And yeah, so in the end they got to 11. This is spoken about, these are dimensions, and it's the same word but it's a different language, that they're talking about stages, levels of awareness. And so it's talking about, yeah, levels of awareness, which I take to be consciousness as well, and perception of what we can perceive. So we're obviously in 3D world. So I just Googled 12 dimensions. Now, I'm perfectly well aware that you Google stuff and you can't really believe it. It's not necessarily true. It's not fact-based. Certainly can't be scientific. You know, it's not necessarily scientific, absolute certain data. But just on the on the understanding that, or just from the principle of putting something into a thing like a phone that's going through a thing like called Google, that I'm trusting in some sense that what I'm shown is what I'm meant to learn, what I'm meant to. So just from that level, nothing to do with fact or whatever, because this is all a process. You know, this is all just a process of thinking, mostly feeling, meditating on it. As I was writing these notes, I was taking as much time to sit and just let the next thing come to me. Not the next thought, but the next like intuitive sense of where I was going next. Not just, yeah, Googling stuff and writing it down. So anyway, on that basis, what I found and I wrote down, it came up, spiritually, the 12 dimensions represent a structural journey of consciousness, details how source energy, God in brackets, steps down its vibration to experience creation. Well, that's interesting because it comes back to this thing of Stefano talking about consciousness, source, divine splitting itself to witness itself and experience things. Down its vibration, steps down its vibration to experience creation from pure light, although I've done it in black, but anyway, in the 12th dimension, down to the dense physical matter in the first. So this is interesting because we think of number 1 as first, but what this is saying is it's going from the 12th is God down to 1, and we're living on 3D, in 3D. Pure light in the 12th dimension down to the physical matter in the first serves as a framework for ascension, allowing souls to evolve through the layers of awareness, moving from separation 3D into unity consciousness 5D and above, and finally returning to source. So before I wrote or looked that up, I was writing. I just started with patterning, so I'm not particularly thinking about anything. I'm just drawing out the dots like I'm doing here, going up to 12. And what it occurred to me was, so you've got the 12 dimensions. So it's almost like this started here as number 1. But it's like it left a trace of something because it's expanded out into the 12. And what we're saying here is that now we are elevating from the 1 to the 2. So this is almost like, it just strikes me that it's backwards. But then I was thinking, so it strikes me as interesting because it seems to be backwards. I think this may be because we think of it as starting with Adam and Eve on this physical planet and expanding out to now however many billions of people we've got on the planet. It just seems backwards. Let's look at why. So dimensions are not a place, but they're a frequency, they're a band of consciousness in forms. Right. Oh, I've just drawn on my trousers. So of course we're seeing this from such a self-centered point of view because here we are, we're all living on this planet and there's space all around and we're trying to work out, we think there's this God, and of course I've drawn him up in the sky, but it's this all pervasive, all omnipresent, all everywhere, in everything, within, without, this God thing, because this is the start of source. But here we are on our planet and we're, we've just sent people around the moon, but we're basically, the majority of us are stuck on this planet. And so we're trying to fathom it all out. And so it's from the perspective of our purpose in life. And when I thought about that, I thought, okay, so does that mean that everything happened here, the Big Bang, the division of consciousness, the whatever, and everything has happened, and this is over, oh my God, we say billions, but we say our universe is something like, is it 44 billion years? And that's a bloody long time, obviously, especially when you only live for something like no past sort of 120, really. There are some that are living longer than that, but generally, so it's a long time, and we're thinking of it as a concentric thing to ourselves. But what if we're just like, if this is the whole universe and this is Big Bang and this is, say, trillions or even billions of years old, the universe is older than that. No. The universe is 44. Oh my God, I'm getting confused now. It's doing my head in. Anyway, this is a massive actual physical space. This is a really long bloody time. And we're literally like smaller than that dot in all of it. We are smaller than that dot. but we're trying to work it out from the perspective of us existing as that dot. Whereas we're not seeing it as all part of everything. Everything is looking at it all out from our perspective. So either we're just a dot of a whole lot of stuff that's going on that we don't know about, and some that we think we do know about, or was everything that started here at this very source point designed exactly so that when there was us existing on this planet in this dot, that everything has been about this point? Not necessarily just us living here today, because this is a huge amount of time. This is, you know, and that's within the concept of our time. I mean, outside, you know, in other dimensions, there is no time, apparently. So again, we're butting up with like really confusing things. But yeah, it just struck me. But everything is so intricately designed in the world, which is why there are scientists that really think that, you know, there is a God, there is a designer, there is an architect, there is a something here. Now, whether that's, you know, source splitting out, and it's interesting to just think that it's just this thing and it just wants to experience itself. And from that starting point, we've got all of this and everything that we can see out in space, plus all the stuff that scientists physicists are pointing at that we can't see. It just comes back to math. But then that's the simple foundations, that it's math, musical notes, which obviously math is numbers as well as the equations and symbol. It's musical notes, it's light, and light frequencies is colour, and then yeah, so sound obviously is within notes, but the notes have a correlation to the math, and then there's sound as in frequency. Oh my word, are we still talking about dimensions or what? Okay, so in one of my earlier videos where I was trying to look at God, and I went through a series of diagrams, if I remember, I'm going to put the link in the description for the video. But then it got, again, this is one of these videos where it's this train of thought. So then it got to a thing where, okay, so if there's a diagram, standard diagram that shows, is trying to show Big Bang theory. So this is the point of the Big Bang, and the universe and everything has expanded out from it since. So obviously this is like a teacup shape. It's drawn on its side for some reason. I don't know, could have gone either way, but they draw it sideways. So imagining now looking down into that teacup. So that is the source, that is the Big Bang, that is where it all began. This is consciousness splitting and experiencing itself. And then again, you can't think of this as places, but I drew out like what was coming from that. And so this outer ring here is what has expanded, if you think of it as a physical thing, like something in a plane of existence. This then is the oldest part. This is the, if we're calling this God or source, because this has come from here and it's expanded out. And if you imagine this in 12 circles, or the lines maybe, so this would be 12, and there'd be 11 and 10 and 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is where it's tricky, because if you're saying that 3 is 3D, that is the physical world that we're living in. But at the same time, we're talking about sort of 12. This is where the confusion is. Now, it's either confusion because our little brains are trying to, like my brain is trying to come to an understanding with this, and I'm conflating and correlating two quite separate things. Because, now where is my notes? Yeah, because physics describes the structure of reality and spiritual frameworks, metaphysics are describing the experience of reality. So I guess this is trying to bring these two things together, but this is just my brain, as I said, working through it. So anyway, so we imagine that this is the God thing, which drawn in a diagram form, you think, yeah, because here's the outer boundary, like God is the thing of all. So it's kind of like it is omnipresent, it's around everything in this physical sort of flat 2D way that I have drawn it. So in the spiritual and the metaphysics systems, these 12 levels of consciousness or awareness, they're also these planes of existence and these stages or potential stages of spiritual development. So with physics, those 11 dimensions are describing the geometry of the universe, whereas, say, like a spiritual teacher is describing 12 states of awareness and of being. It interested me that it started with the 1 and it split out to the 12. But in terms of awareness, we're only at number 3. So we think of, my thinking, I suppose, was that we think of God as the 1, we think of God as the source point, but God is actually 12, like gone up the line, and we're only at number 3. But when I looked at it like this, in actual fact, because this is, this is the beginning of it all, I think I'm just, I am confusing myself in a thing of trying to find a stage of clarity. But actually, this has been here longer. So it is that we're at the level of 3, and like the universe is expanding out, we're at this level. So relating this to our stages of awareness, we are still, but in historical terms, we are down here at the beginning. Other levels, this is just the level that we've been dropped in at. We can never have been dropped in at 2D because there's always been form. That's in physical, obviously, but also in terms of spirituality. Yeah, you're a soul dropped into a lower material form. Now, if you have a belief that your soul has come from somewhere else, I mean, whether we're recycling out of number 9 or number 6, or when we're trying to get back up here, I don't know. That's quite like the Kabbalah tree of life, where you started at the top and you get dropped down, and you're trying to work yourself back up through the tree, constantly probably dropping up and down. So yeah, that I don't know if this is making any sense to you at all. Right, okay. So I started with theory 1. My next notes, as I was thinking about this earlier, theory 2. So the theory 2 is that there is first cause. And first cause can be the Big Bang Theory. First cause can be pure light, consciousness splitting itself, source, because that's an obvious word, because this is where everything has come from. So typical human brain, number 1, I was thinking, where is this happening? Or where did this happen? Now, in one sense, I'm not thinking of geographical place, but in another sense I am, and I'm thinking, right, well, there was a void. Void can be seen as quite a scary sort of, it brings up scary thoughts for some people. Void could also be seen as all potential. That's how I look at it. It's the source of all potential, and it was. Everything came out of it. So my next question was, is it still happening? So these two questions I kind of answered with everywhere. So it's within, without, it's through everything, it is everything, which means, is it still happening? Yes, all the time. So this thing of consciousness splitting itself, or the Big Bang Theory and everything expanding out. This is creation either way, and it's just happening all the time. And then I'm thought about not only, I think it's the Hopi Indians, it is the Hopi Indians, they draw their timeline like 3 lines, like past, present and future, but also in physics now, or is it in metaphysics? No, I think it's in quantum physics, that past, present and future is running along all at the same time. So again, it's a mind-blowing concept, but everything is spewing out, which made me also think of they thought it was a helix. So everything is like circulating in through the hole and back out like a donut. And then another physicist, can't remember his name, that interesting guy, I'll put his name up, he decided it was a double helix. So it's going out of here, it's going down into that one, and it's coming back out of that one, and it's going up into this one and coming. So it's constantly going around in this circuit, reality, the universe. That's what's happening. Again, whew, melts your brain. So yeah, this is the thing. It's happening all of the time. It's happening everywhere. And this is the thing when they say, there is a God particle in each of us, that because whether you think it's consciousness or whether you think it's I was going to say physical thing. It's not a physical thing. It's remembering that we are photons, we are particles, we are constantly moving, we're atomic, energetic beings, that we think that everything is hard and physical, but partly some say that's because we just believe it is. That's always been our perception. So there are those, of course, that take themselves, they transcend this dimension, and they can move through reality, they can move through physical things, they can disappear themselves. There's Aboriginal elders and of course others, but I know stories of Aboriginal elders that they just vanish. It happened in front of Graham Hancock. I say what you like about him, I think there's a lot more people taking him a lot more seriously these days. He's certainly a man who's been, oh my God, devoted for decades now and does amazing work, and he is thorough and he doesn't want to be made to look a dick. So he is very careful, like a lot of these people that are ridiculed or put down as, they're metaphysical, or they're sort of, pseudo-scientists, that's what they call them, by the actual scientists and actual archaeologists. They're called pseudo. But these are people that really thoroughly go into what they do. Andrew Collins, Freddie De Silva, they're all people that really, they know their stuff, they've worked really hard, and they are definitely in the sense of using logic and reasoning. Yes, they find evidence, physical and written and really ancient, but yeah, they know their stuff and they're really spot on about it. Oh, and then I wrote a little note here on the spiritual side of first cause. So on the science side, I put Big Bang Theory. It is a theory. Also I put CERN. We're not going to start going into CERN, but obviously that's how they're experimenting to split down atoms and particles and things to try and get back to the Big Bang, prove the Big Bang Theory. And then on the spiritual side, I put consciousness as an energy, spiritual itself in expansion through the witnessing. Witnessing. That's like the double split experiment in physics, where they noticed that when there was a consciousness, or there was a presence witnessing how the beam or the photon was being sent through the double slit, and it was landing on the back wall to create a pattern, it was different. It changed it when it was conscious. When this machine or whether the machine that was sending the photons or the photons themselves that were being sent through the double split, they knew that they were being observed. Interesting. By an actual scientist, or by a camera, or and it changed how the pattern formed on the back wall. Yeah, that's just a whole nother thing, isn't it? So there's me with my confusion of conflating, different things. We're talking about the physics dimensions, which they seem to have landed on 11. That's like, we'll take that as 11. They're not talking about 11 physical dimensions. They're talking about 11 dimensions that are, the dimensions of reality, some seen, some unseen. Then there's the metaphysics side, the spiritual side. We've got our 12 dimensions. And so then because my thinking originally, when I was getting into theory 2, was based on Stefano de Matthias, because it's got a tilde on his name. So I looked up, and actually he has 9 dimensions. So this thing of the thing splitting itself, it actually went to 9, which I thought, oh, okay. There was only 9. Why? I guess I just got that confused. Now, there is a bit of confusion because Stefano does use 12, but when he's using 12, I might as well do the last one. He's actually talking about 12 archetypes, or 12 rays of creation. So he teaches 9 dimensions of spiritual reality, but he also, in his work, he talks about, and in his system, in his it's like a pattern of organization, symbolic structure, he has these 12 archetypes and 12 creative principles, the creative rays, the 12 rays of creation. So, and he uses those different numerical frameworks depending on what context he's talking about. So in actual creation, consciousness splitting itself, we come to 9 in certain understanding. So it's interesting that he has the 12 archetypes, because within 12 archetypes, you could, I think you can relate that to 12 signs of the zodiac. Now, what do we use those for? We use them for astrology. What do we what do we study astrology for? It's for our own lives, as in personal development, spiritually, and it can help us in our daily lives, but also to understand what potentially could be going on in the world, because what's happening in the cosmos is basically, it is solar flares and movements and conjunctions with planets and constellations does have an effect on us. And it again, like, you have to, there's something to me about things that are in the same way that things are in our bones, things are in our intuition. At the very beginning, I said, in the common intuition, that there is far more to reality than we see physically and we know. So basically, we know that physics, they have 11. In the spiritual, we have 9. I'm going to go with 12. We have Stefano with 9. But looking at this, so just sticking to physics and the spiritual traditions, of which, when I say spiritual traditions, I'm not talking about, some people can go, oh, a new age, and you can all write it off as a load of old bollocks. I'm talking about spiritual as in, I'm talking about really ancient peoples and writings and knowledge and understandings. And I'm talking about the Persians. I'm talking about, say, like the Magi from the Bible, the 3 kings. I'm talking about the Druids of Celtic and pre-Celtic times. These people, they really studied the constellations and the planetary movements and all the rest of it. These were scientists and mathematics. They were polymaths. They were just like, we are talking about a science here. This is before science split off from in religion. It was all one word. It was understanding the world and spirit. The unseen was very much a part of that. So I'm thinking physics is your 11 dimensions, and then there's one missing. But of course, this we're talking, and these are 11, you know, pretty much unseen dimensions, trying to prove reality, same as this. But I'm thinking, oh, like there's one more, and that would be God. And then I think about what Tesla said, and Tesla said, and I don't remember the quote exactly, but he's basically pointing scientists, if they spent and engaged more of their brain power and their energy into the unseen side of physics than trying to look at examine the material world the entire time, they would be so, if they'd been doing that back then, a few decades back then, they would be leaps and bounds forward from where they are now with their theories and their understanding and their knowledge. So yeah, Tesla was a bright man. They didn't get rid of him for nothing, you know. So yeah, you could say this is me trying to make it fit. Well, yeah, you could say that. But isn't that what we're all trying to do? Like, we're all just trying to come to an understanding, and maybe it's, for some reason, like, I question why I can't just be content with just sitting in prayer every day, and why I get my brain like sapped in on things like this. Like, why is that happening? And why am I constantly doing that? And I know that it's not good to be up in the head all of the time. It's about having a balance of being down in the heart and being in prayer, where you're, I practice contemplative prayer. So I'm really opening up a time of, it's effectively like a meditation, clearing the mind, slowing the monkey mind down, letting God in, putting God in the hot seat. And if it's a thing where God's just with me, then God's just with me. It's a thing that God's got something I need to learn, a download, then I have that. If God's got something directly to say to me, then that's going to happen. If I've asked a question, the answer's potentially going to come through in that time. So yeah, I think we're just here all trying to work it out. And I don't know if any of this really helps you or really makes sense. I'm not entirely sure that I've come to a conclusion, but just by doing these process of thought, I think sometimes, yeah, it can really help us. So do with that what you will. Enough's enough. I'm done for the day. You take care. Thanks for watching, and do hit the like button, please. Please hit the like button. Like, literally, when I hit like buttons on people's videos, it's because I'm really appreciating the bloody amount of work that they've put into doing it, because it is quite a lot. Yeah, so hit that like button, share it with friends if that seems right to do so, or hit the subscribe button. You know, you don't have to look at all my videos, but it does help me if you hit the subscribe button, because YouTube will be like, oh yeah, okay, people are watching, people are liking that, and they'll put stuff like this out in front of more people like you that deserve to have some good viewing. All right, my loves, you take care. Bye.